Welcome back to our debate series here at FI9. I'm Imran Chaudhry. In our first debate, we were asked whether large models truly reason or just mimic reasoning. Now we turn to the question that cuts even deeper and closer to the marketplace. Should the future of AI applications favor broad, general-purpose platforms or deeply specialized vertical agents? It's a divide that's shaping a $300 billion agentic AI economy. According to CB Insight's 2025 report, 37% of AI startup funding now flows to specialized verticals focused on agents, and 45% of enterprise adoption goes to general purpose systems. In other words, capital and customers are marching in opposite directions. And 2025 has been the year of rapid divergence. Apple's Agents in the Wild paper showed that generalist agents excel at creative synthesis, but stumble on industry-specific compliance tasks. Meanwhile, Anthropic's Claude Opus 4 and OpenAI's O-Series just introduced modular reasoning frameworks that allow general models that plug into specialized APIs, hinting at a hybrid future rather than an either or. At the same time, companies like Domain and Decagon AI are proving that both paths can thrive, one anchored in regulation and sovereignty, and the other in language-native enterprise adoption. So today, we'll test three facets of this: trust, architecture, and market dominance. And we'll hear from our four leaders on stage with me today, shaping that future. Before we start, listen closely to speakers' key arguments. And at the conclusion of the session, we'll take an audience poll and debate what's going on. So let's start here. Question one is really focused on specialized vertical agents that outperform general models in reliability and compliance. Round one is about trust. It's the hardest currency in AI. Arguing for specialization, we have Ameya Talwalkar, the CEO of Cequence Security, arguing against Jesse Yang, CEO of Decagon AI. Each speaker will have 2 minutes, and let's get going.
Yeah, so I'll go first. This is Ameya Talwalkar, co-founder and CEO at Cequence. I come from a cybersecurity background. Cequence is in the business of securely enabling AI. And what we mean by that is securing the connection between your agents, your LLMs, to your data, and safely enabling that. If you take a lens from sort of that view, from that lens, it is really, really challenging. When I work across various Fortune 500, Global 2000 enterprises, the biggest pain point for adoption of AI or agentic AI in the enterprise today is not having any visibility, trust, and security in how the agents are accessing their enterprise data. So if you take that lens, when I meet the CISOs and the CIOs of various companies, about 3 months ago, they had made tremendous investments in various platforms, whether it's OpenAI or Claude or something else, or Anthropic or Gemini. And all those projects had stalled only because of lack of trust, safety, and visibility. Once you look at what is behind that, the different use cases that they're solving, we realize that in certain cases, let's talk about employee productivity. When you look at those agents that are helping employees become more productive, you need a certain set of visibility, control, and safety around those things. Whereas if you're looking at managing certain engineering projects, you have a completely different sensitivity towards trust and safety. The third and the most extreme case I heard was around the CFO and the finance group in this large Fortune 50 company wanting to access sales and customer data in Snowflake and Salesforce and a bunch of other SaaS platforms. That is highly, highly sensitive information. And so absolutely different lens to look at, and therefore different agents to consider based on the trust and safety.
Thank you. Jesse, Decagon's agents span across industries from retail to finance. How do you reconcile scale with governance?
Yeah, so hey everyone, Dakigon, you can kind of think of us as an AI customer service agent. And so by definition, we are a vertical agent in the sense that we only focus on customer service and contact centers. But as Imran pointed out, we're also very horizontal in the sense that we span across different industries. And the way that we think about that is that you have to make it so that the agents are flexible enough to take on different business logic across verticals. But the structure of the problem is still the same because across different verticals, people still care about the same things. Everyone cares about reliability, everyone cares about security, and everyone cares about customization, being able to customize all sorts of different workflows for their agents. And so for us, we're constantly thinking about this, problem of like horizontalness and verticalness, where there are elements of the product that have to be horizontal and there are elements that have to be vertical. And back to the topic of whether we should generalize or specialize, it really happens on a model by model basis. And so overall, our agent is focused on this customer service use case. But if you break down the agent into all the different model calls, there are going to be some model calls where you have to use the generalized models because they're the most intelligent, and you need that intelligence sometimes, right? Like if you have a bunch of instructions, in sequence, and you need to follow all of them, and it's very important to follow all of them at a very high reliability rate, then yeah, maybe you will need to use one of the Anthropic or OpenAI models because otherwise you can't get a level of accuracy. But overall, as your agent stabilizes, you are going to inevitably find other model calls that have to be, faster or more performant or cheaper, and that's when specialization matters a lot more. And so for those models, you generally will start fine-tuning. You'll start fine-tuning smaller models. You can get them to the same performance as the bigger models because the use case is a lot more targeted. And so I think when we think about generalization or specialization, generally you want to kind of break up the agent into the different components. And the smaller components, generally, you can specialize more.
Thank you both for that. Let's go for reactions. We'll go to Ulyan Sharka and then Pablo.
Thank you. At Domin, we enable organizations to own AI and not just use it. So I believe that safety and domain specificity actually go hand in hand, because the more you make these models contextualized to the area of application, to the specific industry and use case, the safer they are to use, because they're going to be more precise in how they're behaving. I think a huge upgrade is, of course, moving from models to agents. As it was said, we can now actually leverage multiple models into an agentic system and somehow police these models with policies that will react and reflect on what the agent is doing. And I think a big opportunity there is to invest in evaluation and scoring systems by combining language models and traditional data science so that we can have both qualitative and quantitative scoring before we give an outcome. This makes things much safer.
Pablo?
Yeah, at HappyRobot, we're building the AI operating system for supply chain. So by nature, we're just very focused on a specific vertical. So we really need to understand what matters to the customers. Our platform, though, is very horizontal. We have to support a variety of use cases, from sales to support to operations to payment collections. So really, our focus has been on how do we go deep enough in a customer in a customer system of record to understand the different entities, to speak the customer's language. They talk in shipments, they talk in delivery times. So for them, that trust component, the observability of what's going on at the entity level is really important. They don't care about the token that is being outputted. They don't care about whatever module we've built. We have an agent builder, we have an observability platform, but they ultimately care about their shipments getting delivered. And that's the true visibility for them and the true trust they can put on the system.
Right. So we're finding that even in the verticals, there's some broad spectrum in terms of understanding that needs to go into. Let's move to round two, where we're going to be looking at composability and architecture. Hybrid systems, general cores plus domain plugins will define the next generation of agentic AI. And so round two moves us from trust to architecture. Speaking for hybrid designs, Pablo Palafox, CEO of HappyRobot, is speaking against Ulyan Sharka, CEO of Domain. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Pablo, HappyRobot's industrial agents already mix planning and language models today. Is this proof that hybrids scale better than pure specialists?
So to give a bit of context, HappyRobot started serving freight brokers, logistics intermediaries in the US. It was a very narrow set of customers. We built voice agents that could negotiate rates. Yes, the agents were negotiating rates, which is something people actually generally ask us to like double check. And when we showed that our agents were negotiating better than humans, that was surprising to them. So we started there. That led us to say, we have to decide between a vertical platform that only does a set of use cases, maybe only rate negotiation for brokers, or do we also want to support a breadth of use cases throughout the organization? And that's what we went for. We went for building a system that supports the customer in three ways. We have the data layer to really understand, again, how the customer thinks about. They think in shipments, in loads. The execution layer, you have to have individual contributors, if you will, AI agents that actually do that AI phone call, that actually call the customer to let them know we're going to be late. And above everything else, you have the intelligence layer, coordinating, really, those AI workers doing the work in the day-to-day so that they improve over time. So we took that approach of mixing a horizontal platform that helps our forward-deployed engineers build use cases really fast, but then verticalized UIs, to put it simply, verticalized dashboards to show our customers, hey, this is how many shipments we delivered today. Oh, this is how many issues we had today. And we're positioning the human as the guardian of exception, which is just a fancy way to say the AI agents do the mundane and repetitive work. The humans get the issues. They get the edge cases. They get the pieces that are truly hard to solve for like an AI.
So you still have humans in the loop, which is probably going to be the way for quite some time. Ulyan, domains Coliseum 355B, which I love in terms of the name, it's just fantastic, was built explicitly for regulated domains. Why can't a modular architecture simply absorb that domain expertise?
So when we specialize these models, we usually think of one task or a few tasks, and we end up with a governance problem. So in a modular architecture, we tend to have a system that is serving, let's say, a department which has 50 tasks. Then we would need 20 models to achieve that. So to some extent, organizations need their own level and concept of general intelligence. And let's remember that we got here with this Gen AI revolution thanks to the scaling laws. That is scaling up, not scaling down. So as much as we can optimize models to become more efficient, we still need to have models that are big enough, that are able to deliver that level of general intelligence, and also that enable companies to have one model that can solve multiple use cases, because we believe that the correlation power of the transformer is much more powerful than having multiple small models that do retrieval and manage that at the software level. So this is like thinking software 2.0 versus software 3.0.
Right, right. Let's go to reactions. Ameya and Jesse, let's give you 1 minute each to react. Why don't we start with you?
Yeah, and I was having this argument with a few people earlier in the month, and I think we are going to follow a reverse pattern of what has happened, let's say, in a smartphone industry, where before the smartphone, everybody was using a camera separately, a phone to do things differently, browsers and machines to surf the web. All of that collapsed into a generic agent, if you will, that is a smartphone. I think on the AI side, we are going in the reverse direction. We have been given very generalized platforms from these LLM providers, and now we are building specialized agents to do specialized tasks. So I do see a world where eventually the steady state will be, we will have a hybrid system where you have generic platforms to do most of the things, but for certain specialized tasks and objectives, you have to build specialized LLMs as well as agents.
Makes sense. Jesse?
Yeah, I think the hybrid model is a little bit inevitable, because if you think about how enterprises make decisions, there's always the exploratory phase first, and so that's when you use the big models and you might as well leverage all the intelligence you can to see if a use case works. But once it does work, there's a lot of pressure from both the business or competitors or whatever to keep pushing the performance up, and so that means decreasing price, increasing or decreasing latency, and making sure that you can just churn out these use cases at a higher scale. And so that will force a lot of large organizations to specialize parts of the agent. And there might be parts of the agent that can't be specialized, and so you keep those on the general models. But by just in general, you want to be in a spot where you can specialize certain portions of it, and so that's why you end up with more of these hybrid systems. And yeah, I do think that that's just where the industries are going to settle around in, because there's just such pressure to make things go fast. And voice agents is a good example of that. When we deal a lot with voice agents, and to make those work well, you need the latency to be good. So yeah, I think big fan of hybrid.
Thank you. Let's turn our focus to market adoption and business traction. General purpose AI platforms will capture more market share in enterprise adoption than specialized solutions. At least that's the current thinking. Our final round turns to the economics, the ultimate referee. Arguing for general platforms, Jesse from Decagon AI, arguing against Ameya from Cequence Security. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. And we'll start with Jesse. Jesse, Decagon's valuation soared to 1.5 billion. Does that signal generalization as the dominant economic model?
Yeah, so I think it really just depends on the industry. I mean, my view is that in our industry, call centers, customer service, just all customer interactions, almost all the big players end up being very generalized. Or horizontal, and the reason for that is that there is more shared between different verticals than there is specialization, and so you gain more from having a platform that is at scale, proved that it can do a lot of volume and just works just across the board. And so as a result, how our industry has typically worked in the past is that maybe people will start out vertical, but eventually there's consolidation and the big players kind of take over in a horizontal way. I don't think that's true of all industries. I think it's just, in our space, that's just how it is. And so then our job becomes, okay, how do you maintain a generalized system while still giving people the flexibility to build on customizations for the things that they do want to specialize in, right? So for example, our customers in financial services will want different things than our customers that are airlines. But generally, the problem they're trying to solve is the same. And so our job is to make it so that they can go in and customize things very easily. And one of the things that's made us successful so far is that we've kind of come up with a new format to make the customization very easy. And we call the format Agent Operating Procedures, or AOPs. And it's kind of like an SOP, but for the AI. And so you're able to really describe, almost like an instruction manual, how the AI should behave. And that makes it a lot easier to do the specialization and give people the tools to be flexible. And so, I mean, yeah, overall, I would say that our approach of kind of being horizontal and generalized has been good so far, but again, I think it is specific to our space. And so when you do take that strategy, it's just very important to give people the ability to customize. Because even within a certain vertical, like even one bank versus another bank, they might have generally the same use cases, but the way they want to implement those use cases are going to be very different. And so they're going to have to write very different AOPs. And that's our job as a platform to make that happen.
Thank you. Right on time as well. Ameya, it seems like regulators and CISOs are gravitating towards specialized solutions for traceability. Is generalization a luxury they can afford?
I think I've given that view already in my first sort of remark in the first round. I do believe, so if you look at Agentic AI and the adoption, first sort of wave was around customer success, customer support, customer happiness, if you will. The second wave has been around GTM functions, sales and marketing, how you can do things more efficiently. And the third is around productivity and productivity gains. I do see now, I'm fortunate to work with several large retail customers where they're now talking about agentic commerce and ability for their customers to do commerce using agents. If you look at those different buckets, the regulatory and compliance requirements for agentic commerce is a whole world different than serving customer success when they have a problem with your product. Similarly, I'd give an example of finance group accessing data that is very sensitive in nature. So we do see from a regulatory safety compliance reason, the vertical agents with different security models and safety controls is going to be the model for a period of time.
Thank you. Let's go to reactions. Pablo and Oriana, let's do 1 minute each.
So we're seeing a different type of scale for horizontal and general intelligence and vertical intelligence, also in terms of numbers. For example, we're discussing transformational projects with governments that are worth 100 million plus. So you can actually scale vertically and go deep into these huge transformational projects. So I think from our experiences that if you are in the business of providing vertical agents, you cannot afford to not have a horizontal platform as well, because customers want to customize them. If you are in the horizontal general intelligence type of business, then you can go to market and build a huge business without needing these vertical agents. But if you come from the top, you need to actually open your platform as well, because expectations are very high and people want to customize things more than ever.
Thank you. Pablo?
I agree with Jesse's point on this depends on the industry, right? And every one of the enterprises that we serve today has a slightly different workflow. We might be working with a logistics provider that focuses on a certain type of freight. How do you marry that verticalization for that industry with the specialized operation of that one customer, let's say DHL versus FedEx? No, like they might have different approaches to how they do work. So for us, how we envision our AI operating system is you have those individual contributors, again, those AI agents doing the work, those that swarm of AI agents, really. And those are specialized by nature. They have to do something very specific. But then you marry that with a layer that orchestrates. That's a little bit of that horizontal play as well, where you have, like a head of AI, like AI head of operations, AI head of sales, AI head of procurement. Those orchestrate the network and they improve the individual agents.
Thanks, Pablo. As we move to closing the lightning round, we welcome the audience to weigh in on the motion. So get your phones out and get ready to cast your vote. Should be a QR code that you can actually, great. So now for the lightning round closers, 20 seconds each. What would make you change your mind about what we've been discussing? Let's go from Ameya to Pablo, and then we'll go to Julian to Jesse.
Yeah, again, my point of view is if we're able to, in a generalized model, manage the trust and safety of different data and its sensitivity to the need of the regulatory authority of a given region or given business, if you're able to manage that and create sort of different streams of security and guardrails around these interactions, I think that will convince me that we can go to a generalized platform.
Okay, Pablo.
Customers. No, like if a customer tells us, really, what we are doing here is we're trying to reimagine how work gets done in the physical world. We're very focused on that vision. We want to rethink how work gets done in supply chain and physical operations. But obviously, open to feedback from customers. And we've heard that feedback many times. Hey, can you let me also build my own use case? Which essentially means, can I have people build agents with a general platform? But can you also help me figure out the specifics of how things are getting done in my operation today? So it's that marrying that hybrid approach. That's really how we see the world.
Very precise. Julian?
I think companies need to become AI businesses. This is going to be crucial for their freedom to operate. So whether that is general intelligence or vertical intelligence, you need to own the model. Baking your data into a model is like baking sugar into a cake. It's a chemical process. You cannot get it back. This means that you are exporting your company to these models if you don't own them. Then how you use them is just a matter of use case.
Thank you. Jesse, final marks.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can also look at how the general models improve over time versus the open source ones. And if the general ones continue improving at a faster rate, then I think it's hard to imagine a world where things specialize too much. But over time, as the open source ones get better, and as the use cases, in our use cases, if the pockets where we still need generalized models now can be done well by open source models, then you can start specializing more.
Thank you all. Let's see how the audience reacted to the core motion. Generalization or specialization, which path dominates? Wow. Are we surprised by that? No?
We have a future here as companies that are trying to specialize these models, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that that's the path we're going in right now. Thank you to our speakers, Ameya, Pablo, Uyan, Jesse, and to our audience for a great conversation. If round one was about how AI thinks, this round was about how it builds. As we head to round three today, we'll turn to governance and societal impacts of all these systems. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of FII 9.